another edition of the Strange Days audiocast with your host, Jeffrey Chapman.
Hey everybody, it's your Strange Days host, Jeffrey Chapman, aka Chili J, aka Sport Coat, aka Chappy Fox the Reaper. Let me first apologize for the long absence we've had between episodes. There has been a change of location, one for the better, most definitely, and there was an unexpectedly large amount of new adjustment needed. But allow me, before we get started, let me set the tone for this podcast by reminding you that a lot of people went to bed last night and didn't wake up this morning. So if you woke up this morning, then you're winning, okay? And the glass is truly half full. Okay, ready to get started? Let's go. Our last episode saw us discussing the breakout of the Epstein Files issue. We watched as the entire nation paid attention, and Republicans were left with no option but to vote for the release of all the documents. And since then, nothing has happened. 45 days or so have passed now since the legislation was enacted, and Trump's DOJ still refuses to release them. But what has happened since then? Well, there's been an all-out assault on the state of Minnesota, the murder of a U.S. citizen by ICE agents here in the Twin Cities, as well as another shooting of another citizen by agents. There's been the unlawful arrest of thousands of innocent U.S. citizens, again, here on the streets of Minneapolis and St. Paul. There has been the threat to invoke the Insurrection Act and declare martial law here in Minnesota. There has been the invasion and kidnapping of a foreign leader and the commandeering of that country's oil reserves. There has been the openly ignorant threat to attack and take the country of Greenland, which would be in violation of the NATO Accords and would thereby pull the USA out of NATO. And Trump is doing all of this saying that it's because he was not awarded the Nobel Peace Prize. I just have to say something. Donald Trump is just so goddamn stupid. I mean, it's sad. How are people capable of believing in this guy, supporting this guy, following him, declaring him to be a leader? And the truly scary thing to then have to consider is what this says about half of our society. Either they are all incredibly stupid, uneducated, and don't care, or they've signed on to the MAGA movement wholeheartedly, a movement that is a white nationalist movement, a white supremacist movement. And I spoke with someone recently who wondered aloud if the MAGA movement could really be that bad, because he sees black people and Latino people on Newsmax and Fox News all the time, speaking glowingly about Trump and MAGA. And I had to remind that person, I had to educate him actually, that the Uncle Tom, the House Negro, has existed from the very beginning. But guess what? With all of this that's going on, no one is talking about the Epstein Files anymore, and the possible multiple instances of child rape that were perpetrated by you-know-who. I mean, if this isn't a case of the tail wagging the dog, then I don't know what is. And I know that right now Trump is sitting back with his staff saying to themselves, mission accomplished. Today I watched as Trump went to the Davos seminar over in Europe and made a complete and utter fool of himself. How do we rid ourselves of this problem, of this disease, of this infection? And please stop saying that, quote, we'll vote him out of office when the Democrats win back control of the House and the Senate after the midterms. Because Trump is already trying to put in place the weapons he'll be using to prevent any midterm elections from happening. As of today, January 21st, U.S. Army troops are being mobilized in Fort Bragg in preparation for Trump to invoke the Insurrection Act here in Minnesota and put soldiers on the streets of the Twin Cities. And believe me, they will still be here in Minnesota when the midterms come around this fall, okay? Because Trump has already begun saying repeatedly that Minnesota is fraudulent. I won the election in Minnesota all 3 times. And they cheated it and stole it from me. And that will be his excuse to either take the voting boxes, the voting machines after the election and claim that Minnesota's too fraudulent to be allowed to count them, and his people need to count them, or we will suspend elections outright across the entire country. You know, since I was a young boy, once I became aware of the issue of race in our country, I have always heard it said that there would one day be a civil war, and that it would be a race war. But now I know better. Yes, there will indeed be a civil war, but it will be a war not of race, but of state versus federal. State versus federal, people. I'm told by friends in Pennsylvania that their governor there, Shapiro, is already mobilizing all of his state law enforcement and has already issued a warning to the Trump DOJ that if they try to send any federal troops to his state, that he's going to send their asses back to Washington. And that is what I would like to end this episode with. To all of the Democrat-led states, I say you must mobilize your city and state police officers and your National Guard and start prepping them for what lies ahead. ICE agents are at this moment beating up people in the street, handcuffing them, throwing them down face down, and macing them. And now the people are starting to fight back. So far, snowballs, water bottles, one or two instances, shovels. But you know what? Soon they're going to start shooting back. Mark my word. It is very easy to see where this is heading. America has entered a fascist era. We are there now, people. Something that we talked about in school growing up and never truly understood. You and I will now be able to tell our grandchildren about this moment when America, the home of the free, became the most hated and disgraced country on the planet. Things are fast moving, people, and I promise to bring more food for thought in the upcoming weeks. Like me on Facebook and subscribe and follow me on YouTube and Substack. Be safe, everybody. Keep your eyes open. Keep your head to the sky. And remember, if you're not already upset, then you're not paying attention.
Thanks for joining us for another edition of the Strange Days audiocast. Peace and blessings, everybody.